Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Enchanted Echoes of King's Manor. Holly had always been fascinated by old architecture, and King's Manor on the Isle of Wight was no exception. The manor, an expansive labyrinth of narrow corridors and ancient rooms, had stood for centuries, weathering the relentless passage of time. Legends of its haunted halls and echoes of tragic events intrigued her, drawing her to the island like a moth to a flame. Arriving at the manor on a blustery autumn day, Holly felt a shiver of excitement. The grand facade of King's Manor, with its ivy-covered stone walls and towering spires, loomed ominously against the grey sky. She clutched her coat tighter as she approached the entrance, her footsteps crunching on the gravel path. Inside, the manor was eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of old wood and the whisper of wind through cracked windows. Dust motes danced in the beams of weak sunlight that filtered through the grime-covered panes. Holly's eyes roamed over the faded tapestries and antique furniture, remnants of a bygone era. As she ventured deeper into the manor, Holly's curiosity led her to a narrow, dimly lit corridor she hadn't noticed before. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in on her. She hesitated, but the allure of the unknown propelled her forward. The corridor twisted and turned, leading Holly to a large, dimly lit room. At its center stood an ornate mirror, its surface marred by time and neglect. Drawn to it, Holly approached, her reflection wavering as she neared. The moment she stood before the mirror, the air around her seemed to shimmer, and she was enveloped in a disorienting wave of vertigo. When this sensation passed, Holly found herself in a different part of the manor. The room was identical to the one she had just left, but something was off. The air was heavy with a palpable sense of dread, and a cold, unnatural silence pervaded the space. She heard a faint whisper, barely audible, but growing louder. It was as if the walls themselves were speaking, echoing voices from the past. Holly strained to listen, catching fragments of conversations, cries of anguish, and desperate pleas. Help us. But why did you do this? Please, don't leave us." The voices overlapped. She turned, trying to find the source, but the room seemed to close in around her. Panic set in as she realized there was no door, no exit. Desperately, Holly ran to the mirror, hoping to find a way back. As she touched its cold surface, the room around her shifted once more. She found herself in a grand hall, its walls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. The atmosphere was thick with an oppressive silence. She felt a presence behind her and turned to see a figure standing in the shadows. It was a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned gown, her face hidden in the gloom. The woman's eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and she spoke in a voice that resonated with centuries of sorrow. "You should not have come here. You have awakened the echoes of King's Manor, and now you must face their wrath." Holly backed away. The walls began to close in, the portrait's eyes following her every move. She heard footsteps echoing behind her, growing closer with each passing second. Frantic, Holly ran through the twisting corridors, but no matter which way she turned, she found herself back in the grand hall. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling her mind with images of past horrors, a family torn apart by betrayal, a murder committed in cold blood, and the sorrowful cries of those who had perished within these walls. Each iteration of the hall became more nightmarish. The once grand portraits now depicted scenes of violence and despair. Blood dripped from the walls, pooling at her feet. Ghostly figures materialized around her, their eyes hollow and accusing. Holly screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The whispers turned to screams, and the figures reached out, their cold hands grasping at her, pulling her into their endless torment. In her final moments, Holly understood the true nature of King's Manor. It was a place trapped in time, a prison for lost souls doomed to relive their tragedies for eternity. She was now one of them, another echo in the labyrinthine halls, forever haunted by the past. And so, the cycle continued. Visitors who came to King's Manor were drawn into its twisted corridors, becoming part of its dark history. The echoes grew louder, more sinister with each new soul as the manor claimed its victims one by one. Holly's spirit joined the chorus of the damned, her voice a mournful wail in the endless darkness. And the manor stood, unchanged, a monument to the eternal suffering of those trapped within its walls, waiting for the next curious soul to succumb to its enchanted echoes. Years passed, and King's Manor remained an enigmatic landmark on the Isle of Wight, shrouded in an aura of mystery and dread. Despite the local legends and the warnings of the island's inhabitants, the manor continued to attract the curious and the brave, each one convinced they could conquer the mansion's haunted reputation. Among the latest visitors was a group of paranormal investigators, led by Dr. Lucas Ainsley. Renowned for his scientific approach to the supernatural, Lucas was determined to uncover the truth behind the manor's eerie phenomena. With his team, Emma, a sensitive medium, Jacob, a tech expert, and Sarah, a historian, he arrived at King's Manor on a cold, moonlit night, equipped with the latest in ghost hunting technology. As they entered the manor, the familiar, oppressive atmosphere closed in around them. Lucas's resolve strengthened. This was precisely the type of challenge he relished. They set up their equipment in the grand hall, unaware that Holly's spirit watched from the shadows, her spectral presence now an integral part of the manor's malevolent force. Emma, attuned to the supernatural, immediately sensed the weight of countless tormented souls. She shuddered, feeling the cold tendrils of sorrow and fear wrap around her. "There's so much pain here," she whispered, her breath visible in the icy air. Jacob, eager to capture any paranormal activity, switched on his devices. The EMF meter spiked erratically, and his infrared cameras picked up strange, shifting shadows. "We're definitely not alone," he remarked, his voice tinged with excitement. Sarah, meanwhile, pored over ancient documents she had found in the manor's library, hoping to piece together its tragic history. She uncovered tales of betrayal, murder, and madness, each story more horrifying than the last. One account detailed the brutal murder of a family during a stormy night, the blood staining the very floors they now stood upon. As the night wore on, the investigators experienced increasingly disturbing phenomena. Disembodied voices echoed through the halls, chilling drafts swept past them, and objects moved of their own accord. Emma attempted to communicate with the spirits, feeling a strong connection to one in particular, a young woman named Holly. "Holly, can you hear us?" Emma called out during a seance, her fingers resting lightly on a planchette. "We're here to help. Tell us what happened." The planchette moved slowly, spelling out, "Trapped, help us." Lucas watched intently, his skepticism wavering. "Can you tell us who trapped you, Holly?" he asked, his voice steady but strained. The planchette spelled, "King's Manor, cursed." Suddenly, the room's temperature plummeted, and the grand hall transformed before their eyes. The investigators found themselves in the midst of a ghastly reenactment of the manor's darkest night. The walls dripped with blood, and ghostly figures of the murdered family appeared, reliving their final moments in a gruesome tableau of terror. Lucas and his team were paralyzed with fear as the spectral figures turned their attention to them, their eyes filled with rage and despair. Holly's ghostly form emerged from the shadows, her face a mask of sorrow. "You must break the curse," she pleaded. "Destroy the mirror, free us." Realizing the gravity of their situation, Lucas and his team scrambled to find the mirror Holly had mentioned. They raced through the twisting corridors, guided by Holly's ethereal presence. The manor seemed to fight back, its walls shifting and warping, trying to keep them from their goal. Finally, they burst into the room with the ornate mirror at its center. The surface of the mirror roiled like liquid, reflecting their terrified faces in a nightmarish distortion. Without hesitation, Lucas grabbed a nearby candlestick and swung it at the mirror with all his might. The mirror shattered with a deafening crash, its pieces scattering across the floor. A surge of energy erupted from the broken glass, and the anguished cries of the trapped souls filled the air. The manor trembled, its ancient walls groaning as if in pain. The ghostly figures began to dissipate, their faces softening into expressions of relief and gratitude. Holly's spirit lingered a moment longer, her eyes meeting Emma's. "Thank you," she whispered before fading into the ether. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. King's Manor, now free of its cursed echoes, felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from its foundations. Lucas and his team, shaken but triumphant, emerged into the dawn light. They had uncovered the truth and freed the souls trapped within the manor's haunted halls. King's Manor stood silent and still, its dark history finally laid to rest. But even as they left the island, a lingering sense of unease remained. The echoes of King's Manor had been silenced, but the memory of its haunted past would live on, a reminder of the darkness that once dwelled within its labyrinthine corridors. And as the years went by, new stories would emerge, new mysteries to be unraveled, for some places are never truly at peace. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.